paranormal field and the paranormal world. And Michigan's doing great things. So hands off to everybody that's involved with that. Also, she's talking about announcements. I have announcements to make about the Hinsdale House. I'm going to show you guys a little feature clip here of a show that's going to be on this Friday, featuring the Hinsdale House. Also, it's going to be on America's Most Terrifying Locations on Travel Channel on Sunday, the 28th of October at 11 o'clock p.m. Also, another location that I'm renovating, the Wildwood Sanitarium, is also going to be on that. It's going to both be featured on the same location, or on the same episode. So I'm really excited about that to be on the Travel Channel. So before I get started talking, I'm just going to play this little clip for you guys, just so you can see kind of this trailer for this episode that's going to be airing. Does anybody have a Roku in here? Available to watch on a Roku? This is going to be on the Spirit Channel on Roku.
I'm Megan Deputy.
And I'm Rob Thompson.
Hear footsteps upstairs, you go upstairs to see what's going on, nothing's there.
It's happening already.
Now. And I'm not really want to invade this room anymore. We are guests here. We're the ones in your home, and we respect that. This land is sacred to his people. You heard that, Ricky? I heard wolves.
I heard wolves. I give. I do not take.
Listen, you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
You
I'm not going to class. First of all, let's
Come on, I did it. You can
lay that down right now.
It's like a game. It's fun. It's music. When you smell sulfur emitting out of nowhere, that's a big indicator for some heavy-hitting entities.
Something touched me.
There's spirits all around you, whether you want to see it or not.
Join the Ghost Finders Season 9 premiere, Friday, October the 5th, on the Spirit Channel.
So that's pretty cool. So this is a picture of the Hinsdale House right here. I'm just going to bring it up. What it looked like when I first purchased the house. The grass was actually a little bit taller than that after we actually did a little weed whacking on it. Like she said, I grew up in a haunted location. I didn't know that it was a haunted location. My parents always kind of sloughed things off as pranks or the wood creaking or the house settling in. But as I grew older, I kind of grew more suspect to how did those crayon drawings happen in the ceiling? The 9-foot ceiling. Is nobody was in the house. We all just went out for dinner. And there's crayons sitting in the middle of the living room floor. Why is there, sound like a girl singing upstairs when we're all downstairs? You just had that feeling of something following you in the house. When I turned 18, I had gone to a psychic community, and I had really not believed in psychics. I really didn't believe in much of that kind of stuff at that point, but my friend had talked me into going to a place called Lilydale, New York. And I sat down with the president of Lilydale. I said, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go big. So I went and had a meeting with her. And before I even sat down at the table with her, she goes, you have children's spirits living in your home. And I said, wow. And she just answered all my questions. This is great, So I started doing a little bit of research on the house, but then I went to college and when I got done with college, my parents, said, we're going to be selling the house. And I said, well, can I buy the house from you? Because I was still very interested in trying to figure out what was going on with it. So I ended up buying that house from them, doing more research on it. And one thing always emanated in the back of my head that she had said to me, that they're attached to something in this house. There's something there that they're attached to from original to the house when they lived there. And for God's sake, I tore that place apart, couldn't find anything. My parents couldn't figure out what it could be possible to original piece of anything in that house that they knew of. So I had owned the house for probably about a year and a half, and my son was telling me stories, and he was seeing things and hearing things the same as when I was a kid. And I remember going upstairs, and it had one of those little attics, and it was these little crawl spaces, a little square that nobody ever goes up in those. But I'm like, huh. So I said, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to check this out. Maybe there's something up there. I got one of those ladders, and I popped it open and started walking. I got on those rafters, making sure I didn't fall through any of the ceilings, so my wife would have killed me. And over on the back of the attic, there were these boards. And when I turned the boards over, they were actually paintings of a little boy and a little girl playing with a dog. And I was like, wow, this is like a Scooby-Doo episode. This is like amazing. I finally figured it out what they're attached to. And once we acknowledged them and found these objects, it seems like they moved on. Nothing's really happened in the house since then. I put them on display. I feel like they're part of the family because they've been with us for so long. I did further research on the house when I bought the house and was able to pull the deed and the history of that, and I found that the 2 kids did die in the house at cystic fibrosis. So it's just a sad story. They're still living their childhood, which piqued my interest in the paranormal. I was always interested. After that happened, it was something I was always interested in. I formed a team in Buffalo called the Greater Western New York Paranormal Society. And our team, just like any other team, was helping out families, going to locations, trying to help people, and going to larger locations and trying to check claims out. And then along one December came this Hinsdale House. And my co-founder of the group, he said, Dan, don't let anybody know where we're going. Don't do any research on this location. Because normally that was my job. Normally that was my job to do that. But just, let everybody know where we're, the address and what time to be there. So it was in the middle of December. I remember going there. It was about an hour and a half south of Buffalo. And just driving up the hill in the middle of December, it was just desolate. There's this house in the middle of this hill, in the middle of nowhere, no neighbors in sight. And just, you could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet. And I remember getting in the house, not knowing anything about it, sitting down in the living room, and the first thing he had us do was he put a computer down on a table in the living room and plopped on the story of a dark forest that was on A Haunting, which was based on the story of the Hinsdale House. And I just remember watching this episode and then looking at him and saying, "You mother effer." I go, "Do you think it was kind of a good idea to let us know that there was a failed exorcism in this house before having us all come up here? Like it was kind of a big thing. You want to kind of mentally prepare yourself going into a location if there was a failed exorcism." We ended up having not a bad night, but a very good night. It seemed like the spirits in the house were wanting to let us know that they were there. We didn't have to tell them how to use the equipment. We didn't have to tell them anything. It just, our equipment was being manipulated. We were getting EVPs. We were getting Help Me. And it was like, it really piqued my interest because there's been times where I've gone to locations and I'd sit there for 6 or 7 hours and we'd be lucky if we got a K2 hit or an EVP. And to go into this little 1,100 square foot farmhouse that's been sitting there, and get all this stuff happening, I was like, wow, this is really crazy. So I started actually going back there to research a little bit more. Up to that point, all I knew about was this family that moved in there in 1970, and they were the Dandy family. They basically moved in and started having all this poltergeist-like activity happening in the house. The one daughter was being tormented by a spirit there. Statues were being thrown off the shelves. Knives were being thrown into pictures, and she documented this all in a book that she wrote. I have some copies available. But she basically started talking to the Catholic Church. She was a very big Catholic. The St. Bonaventure University was about 25 minutes down the road, and there was a priest there named Father Alphonse Trabolt that was into that type of stuff. This is before the movie The Exorcist came out, so it was all very taboo. This isn't something that you talked about, demons and exorcisms and things like that. So he actually was counseling her. They were writing letters back and forth. He came out to the house and performed a mass because he thought that would help her. And it did. Things seceded a little bit. Then it came back full force. And it just kept going on more and more and more. And then he actually got an okay from the Catholic Church to perform a structural exorcism of the house. He had a film crew come in because they had never really done anything like this before to kind of film what was going on and what had happened. And they did this whole structural exorcism again. They weren't sure if it had worked or if anything was going to happen because of it. And what they found out was after about 2 weeks, whatever spirits were there came back again and were tormenting the family again. And basically, his advice to this family was to leave instead of leaving the house. In 1969, the land was purchased by a business tycoon in the area. It was originally 100 acres. She had subparceled the properties out into 10 acres, and she had dug ponds on each of the properties, and then tried renting them out to like hunters or families. This one had a house on it, so she was renting it out to families. My theory is that when she dug this pond, she dug up something. I'm now finding out later that the McMahon O'Briens that lived there prior to 1969 had a family plot that was behind the barn, which is now where the pond was. I don't know, these are all theories that I have, but this family ended up leaving there, and then there was people moving in and out throughout times, and because it was a rental property, it's so hard to get in contact with these families. They're coming to me now, telling me, oh, we lived there for 2 weeks, or we lived there for a month. Oh, we left all of our personal possessions in the house and just jetted because we didn't want what was ever there to let it to know that we were leaving. We've caught some amazing evidence at this house. I had started going and researching it, and I had found out about a family called the Misnick family. They were the last family to live there in the 1980s, and then the house became dormant. And we were there doing an investigation. It was about a couple weeks probably before the house, we were probably saying our goodbyes before they were going to tear the house down. And we were in there and we were talking about the exorcism and the Dandy family. Nothing was happening in the kitchen. And I remember saying, Flo, are you here? And Flo was the older lady that was the last person to live there. And I had this static go up my arm. I had a K2 meter in my hand. And this thing went all the way to 5 milligot, all the way up to red. If you guys see those shows on TV, or you're a ghost hunter, or you're doing the paranormal, I mean, they usually will bleep on and bleep off when there's some type of energy surge in the room. I mean, there was no electricity in the house because all the electricity was ripped out. No ductwork, nothing conducive to having any type of electrical making that current go off in my hand. And then to feel this jolt up my arm, I had never felt anything like that before. I had goosebumps, and it was just like crazy for me. It was kind of a personal reaction for me. I continued to have a conversation with who I believe is Flo Misnick. And I asked her, actually, can you hold my hand as we go up the stairs? I held her hand up the stairs. The K2 meter stayed lit and red all the way up the stairs up into the master bedroom. If anybody's seen Paranormal Lockdown, that room with all the flies in it, when I tried crossing over into that room is when I lost her. It was like she wasn't there anymore. And then the very next day, I get a message from this girl named Jackie Chandra, who was Flo Misnick's granddaughter, just out of the blue, saying, I see that you were up at the house. Flo Misnick is my grandmother. And I'm like, holy crap, it kind of just was like all these signs pointing to try to save this place, try to save this place. So, being in the paranormal field, I'm sure many of you have seen so many awesome locations tore down that could mean a lot to researching the paranormal. I put a bid in to save this place, and I remember my wife telling me how crazy I was. This place, we had just closed on another family home for our family, and they basically wanted me to come up with 10 grand to buy this crap hole right here, if you look at the picture, as a deposit, because it came with 10 acres of land. It had, obviously, it needed a new roof. It was leaking, black mold throughout the whole kitchen. If you look on my book here, on the back of the house where these boards are, there was a beehive of about 500,000 honeybees in the floorboard of that room where the bees were. They had to be removed. The septic was an old oil tank that collapsed that needed to be redone. New well had to be drilled if we wanted water. New well pump, I mean, you name it, everything had to be done with this house if we were going to save it. The wood was original wood from 1853 that's just been painted and painted and painted, so bugs were just getting in. But amazing thing, you know, I said, something just told me to go ahead and go forward with it. And I signed the paperwork, scraped up the 10 grand, I had nothing left. And I said, okay, now what the hell am I going to do? I have this house that's probably going to fall apart if I don't get a new roof put on within the next 3 months. So I had, I called it a day, I just put it on Facebook and I said, I'm going to have a day of caring. If anybody wants to come help me paint or patch or whatever, come on up to the house. And it's weird because like the way you treat people in life, I feel like sometimes it comes back tenfold. And that day, when I had that day of caring, I had 63 people show up with roofing supplies, painting supplies, patch-up supplies, and within 2 weeks had a new roof put on it. What would have cost me $10,000 ended up costing me $4 to get a whole new roof tear off put on that house, which was the most amazing thing in the world because that was the one thing I needed to get done, just to at least get through that winter. You know, I also needed to get electrical redone. We had all the electrical hooked up onto the bottom floor. And it's been a slow process. All the teams that have come in that have been very understanding, and we've been slowly renovating it back to its heyday, back in the 1970s, with the pictures I have. It looks amazing now. I'll show you guys some pictures real quick. Some of the progress that we've done with the house. And this is all because of the paranormal. See, I'll share some other pictures. That's kind of what it looked like when I got it. Crazy, right? So this is today. Oh, that's new plumbing. They're just popping up on their own. This is the back of the house. There's another picture of the front. And it was originally white, so I wanted to bring it back to what it was. So I actually had to put bars on all the windows and the front doors because of the people trying to break in and ruin it. This is us putting the new oil or the new well in, the new oil or the new pump in, so we can get fresh water into the house. Do we have a working bathroom? That's a 450-foot well. We do have a pond there as well. But it's been constant, just the paranormal field. You know, it's kind of an amazing story because people always, you see like teams coming in and people going to these locations and donating their money, and then they get shut down or torn down. And I truly believe if it's managed the right way, you don't have to charge a lot of money. If your heart's in the right spot and you're taking that money and you're putting it back in those locations, you can take a hunk of crap and turn it into something great and have it for a future, for research. And this is a good story. I mean, this it's one of the good stories to have, and I'm taking what I've done with this and I'm putting it towards another location called the Sanitarium, the Wildwood Sanitarium, which is about 30 minutes down the road from there. And it also needed a new roof, and it's an old tuberculosis hospital, and it's a lot bigger. But with people coming in and paying for tours and staying overnight and researching it, they're not only helping the location with the history, and maybe giving a new timeline. They're also helping to renovate the location. So it's not just me doing it; it's everybody that's in here, anybody that's ever been to the house, anybody that's ever participated in a ghost tour. You're helping to renovate history. This is going to be on the National Historic Sites now. The Cattaraugus County in New York has taken notice as to how popular this house has become, and they've actually repaved the whole road up the mountain to get to the house now. They're putting up signs. They're promoting it on Haunted History Trail of New York State online. it's become a tourist attraction. And not because it's a haunted location or a haunted thing that comes out at Halloween, because it's a national treasure now, because people from the paranormal field find it's a treasure and they come there and they research the paranormal, and they're staying at hotels, they're eating at restaurants, and it's drew people from 5 different countries last year to come to Cattaraugus County. And now that we're doing it at another location, now people can come for the weekend. So the counties are actually taking notice that it's drawing people in as a tourism attraction. It's pretty crazy. And I think a lot of people that own locations could really benefit from getting involved with their local counties and local organizations to try to help them as well, because I didn't think that they'd be able to help me. And boy, have they really made me part of the community. They just gave us an award for the best, it was like what, the best, John, you remember what that was? It was the best, I don't know, it was a business award for hospitality and drawing in business to the local economy. And I was like flabbergasted that they would bestow that upon me with all the businesses that are in the county. Just the haunted house, you know, and we're drawing in all these people, I guess, so it's a good thing. So I'll tell you guys some stories about this house. I mean, I told you guys a little bit about this exorcism, right? That's not the only story. I mean, this place has got a history to it. That's not the only thing that makes it interesting, you know? I mean, I talk about that I'm researching the place and I'm trying to find out the history, and it seems like it's an evolving story as we keep going with it. We dated the house back to 1799, I'm sorry now. I had actually had the timeline incorrect. And when Live Sci-Fi was there doing, researching the history, they said, hey Dan, you screwed up on the history here, you spelled this name wrong. And I said, oh, that's good, so what does that mean for me? And she says, well, look at this new timeline that opens up. And I'm like, oh, and then basically gave me a kind of a leadway into a story, because there was a lot of folklore associated with paranormal, and there's truths and then there's folklore. And there was always a story about these 2 brothers that lived in this house that would kill and rape and steal from the stagecoach trails. People come along the stagecoach trails, store their bodies in the basement or the crawl space and bury them out on the hill. And I said, oh, that's pretty far-fetched. There's no way we're ever going to find any truth to that, right? Because first and foremost, I can't ever find any records of 2 guys ever living in this house, you know, with what I have. So when they corrected my timeline, and they actually built the house. It was the Everett brothers that owned the house in 1853. Now, I don't know if these guys, I've researched them. I don't know if they're killers. You know, they seem like pretty stand-up guys, but, you know, I guess there's truth to every fable. You know, I don't know if there's any truth to what that story is, you know, but we do get a lot of DVPs that say, help, I'm buried, find me. Hopefully we'll have the answers, you know, it's like I said, it's an ongoing process. I do want to get ground excavation work done. When I had to get the septic system redone, I found Indian arrowheads. There was an Indian massacre on the property in 1799, so we have Indian arrowheads that we found. We found relics from the town of Hinsdale from the 1800s that were buried on the property. So it's pretty cool to find those. And we have those on display for people. So there's that one story, you know, and it's kind of cool that it may correlate with some of the history of the house. Also on this property, when it was originally 100 acres, on the northeast corner of the property, right on off the main road, there was the town of Hinsdale's hanging tree, where they put people to rest for their wrongdoing. And it was on right on the road. This tree was hit by lightning in 2003 and fell over into a ditch. But there's this story. The priest came through in the 1970s and brought a famous psychic by the name of Alex Tanis with him. And you know, Alex Tanis came up with these visions of a woman that was hung, that committed adultery. And she was hung because she committed adultery. And then supposedly her husband was off at war and couldn't provide her with a ring, but they were married and she was pregnant. We always get these visions of a woman in white out by the pond, and a lot of people associate her with that story because she seems lonely and she's looking for somebody. Those are the EVPs that we get from her. We don't know for sure if that's the truth. We haven't been able to find any records of that at all. We do know for certain there was a hanging tree there, and it was the Haunted Hinsdale hanging tree. We have pictures of it, what it looked like before it was hit by lightning, and it's kind of, eerie to think about that on the property there was a hanging tree, and there was many people put to death there. There was a story that we have confirmed stories of death on the property. There was behind the barn. There was a little boy named Alfred Warren Emerson who lived on a neighboring property. He was over there playing on some farming equipment, a buzzsaw, and the chain snapped and cracked him in the head, and he had died. There are events of a little boy being seen on the property, and a lot of people associate that story with him. We don't know for sure. We've never gotten the name Alfred Warren Emerson on any EVPs yet, but we get pictures of a little boy. There was also, in back behind the house, there was a brother that shot his brother because they got into an argument about religion. So he had just got out of jail last June in Tennessee. And he had died right on the property as well. We do have evidence of Native American burial ground and massacre on the property. Where the location sits is on the top of a hill. There's a water source, which would have been very conducive for a Native American tribe to want to be at, up high with a water source. It would have been a good location for them to be. And the fact that we found, Indian relics there says a lot, because we've actually gotten spirits of an Indian chief and an Indian woman out by the pond as well. I just wanted to show you guys some of the pictures that we've caught in the house. This one was caught in the house, upstairs. And you can see, like right here, you can see like a girl's face in a dress. And a lot of people associate this with the young girl. Now, I said that the little girl in the Dandy family was tormented when she was living there. Well, after they left, she committed suicide, and it's very sad. We don't. But for some reason, it seems like she came back to the house, and a lot of people have gotten her. Tim Shaw is one of my buddies. He's seen her there, and there was another girl by the name of Carissa Fleck that came there, and Laura was her name. Used to love the smell of Vicks Vapor Rub, and she performed an experiment upstairs where she left a tub of the Vicks Vapor Rub up on her bed. Went out for dinner and came back, and there was a fingerprint inside the Vicks, which was kind of crazy. And then we catch pictures like this, and that's right outside of her bedroom. It's kind of creepy. One of the other things too, like with some donations that we've got, we've been able to install live cameras in the inside of the building and on the outside of the building. And the first night that we had the live cameras running, we got this picture right here, coming in from can you guys see that? The shadow figure? And we always catch the shadow figure walking in it looks like it's coming from the outside to the inside, and that's right outside of Michael's room, which was the son who died in the car accident with the Dandy family. It seems like there's a lot of tragedy with this family. But we have these live cameras running now 24/7 for people to watch online. And it's cool because if you're on a paranormal team and you have your static cameras running while you're at an investigation, the worst thing about being on a paranormal team, John was just telling me, I'm still trying to listen to that audio, you have to go back and listen to hours and hours and hours of audio and hours and hours and hours of video. The cool thing about having it online is that you'll have 100 to 1,000 people watching this video at any given time. And I know if something's happening because all of a sudden my phone will start blowing up. Damn, did you see this? And I'm getting still shots sent to me of something that may be happening at the house. I've even gotten pictures of, looks like somebody's trying to break in, and I was able to call the cops and have them there right away, and there was a bunch of kids screwing around on the property. And I wouldn't even have noticed it because I was doing something with my daughter, and they had the live stream running on paranormalwarehouse.com, and they saw the flashlights in the windows and blew my phone up, and I was like, wow, and then got the cops there right away and scared the kids. So I mean, it's beneficial, definitely beneficial. And And then there's this new one here. I don't know if you guys can see that, like right here.